Welcome in to the 14. This is the Thursday edition. The SEC Tournament is underway. SEC baseball 1 day from getting underway for the weekend. We had some games in the midweek we will talk about. But first and foremost, it is tournament time in basketball. Like we said, the SEC Tournament is underway. Our perfect bracket has already been broken, Blake, because Texas A&M falls to Vandy last night in a game where, frankly, I thought Vanderbilt played really well.
Yeah, they look good. I thought too. Like you said, we called it. We said that this was going to probably be the most unpredictable game of the tournament, and sure enough, Vandy they looked a lot better than we thought they would after the way they finished the regular season at Ole Miss. But I mean, yeah, it's I think it goes back to something we talked about, and I put out the stat on Twitter, like 19 of their 25 games now this year, they've hit at least 8 threes. And the thing is, you would say, okay, well, maybe they've hit that many threes because they've had to shoot that many because they played from behind and, they're the team that finished towards the bottom. But really, they've done it efficiently. Like, they're actually in the top 100 in three-point percentage. They're third in the SEC. They've just been a pretty efficient three-point shooting team. And I think that is something to where, they're able to knock down some shots. A&M just really, I thought Emmanuel Miller took a little while for him to get going, but once he did, he was exactly kind of who he thought he could be in this game. But really, Vandy, man, Scottie Pippen, 15 of 15 from the free throw line. You don't see that often. And then, like we talked about, like it was a matter of, okay, who's going to step up around him? And that's where we saw DJ Harvey have a really good game, 17 points. Max Evans had 12. You had Jordan Wright put in 9. Trey Thomas had 9 off the bench. That's what Vandy has to have if they're going to make a run in this tournament. And so I was pleasantly surprised by how they came out. I thought that good start really helped them because, as we said, I think A&M's a team that can kind of frustrate you if you let them get going, and we saw them make that late run to make things pretty interesting. But yeah, I thought it was a really solid performance there for the Commodores.
Well, Vanderbilt's not a super gifted team outside of Scottie Pippen Jr., and man, that kid had a wild game last night. The stats, he was 3 of 17 from the field, but he's 15 of 15 from the line. He drew, for some reason this box doesn't have it, the other ones do. No, he drew 11 fouls. Good grief, that's ridiculous. Scores 22 points, 6 assists, 2 turnovers. But the supporting cast we've talked about all year, again, not a lot of names that you just go into game planning and just like, oh my goodness, I'm scared to death of this guy or that guy. But what they do have, Blake, is a lot of guys who can knock down a 3 or 2 a night. And they had 6 guys who hit them last night. And really, you just saw them spread the floor and get good looks from 3. And when they go down for Vanderbilt, that's when the Commodores have a chance to beat a decent team. And kind of their recipe for victory all year was the recipe for victory that they used on Wednesday night against A&M.
Yeah, and I think it was too, we talked about it. We could look at A&M's past 2 games, but like that's really all we had to go on because we just didn't have, that variety over the past month of seeing, the ups and downs of a team like A&M, and you didn't really know how they were going to come out and play. And that's why I thought the most important part was just the fact that Vandy got off to a good start. Because I think, to build up that lead the way they did, knowing that probably at some point A&M was going to make a run, and they did. But I thought that was the most important part to me, was you kind of take away that momentum that A&M had built up in that game at Arkansas, and you just come out and, kind of just smack them in the mouth right off the bat, and that's what Vandy did. And I thought that was a big key to allow them to kind of have that little bit of a cushion going, late into the game. So, yeah, it was interesting. And I think what's going to be even more interesting now is, this matchup with Florida. I know we said yesterday that, you look at Florida and I felt like, and I mentioned it, I said, hey, I think A&M is a team that can probably frustrate, Florida a little bit more than maybe Vandy could. But like, if you look at the Gators, I know those 2 games were not exactly ideal for Vanderbilt. Florida won the first one 91-72 in Nashville here, and then they won the second one 78-71. But Florida's been a pretty good team at defending the 3. That's one area I worry about for Vandy in this game. Because, I just think that that's going to have to be the way that they win this game. But, I said it. I don't think Florida is a team that just is going to completely overwhelm you on offense. If they do, that's fine. But I just don't think we've seen that enough this year from them. If you go back really over the past month, You look at Florida's score lines, like they're around that 70-point range, nothing above 75. So I'm very curious to see kind of what that looks like in this game if Vandy can defend them. Because I do think it's interesting, and I find this to be one of the more interesting games of the day. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but I think again when you get some momentum in that first game of a tournament, you can carry that over into the next game. Even though this one's maybe a little bit different because you're having a pretty quick turnaround here for the Commodores.
Blake, been doing a lot of bracket math and things like that. I've spent a lot of time crunching the numbers. I don't know that anything's really going to change for the SEC other than that. Let's watch what happens with Ole Miss. We'll get to that in a second. I think certainly Arkansas, Alabama are going to get high seeds. I think we've determined that Alabama, I mean, even running the table and beating Arkansas on Sunday, which we've talked about that and how that may not matter anyway, Alabama's kind of, I think, set as a 2.
That's what I think. And I guess now we can go ahead and sort of bring up the biggest story of the day, probably in college basketball, which is Duke having a positive test and not playing in the ACC tournament tonight, which probably means their season's over. I don't think they're getting a bid. Even if they do, I know logistically it's still going to be interesting to see. Could they play based on the timing and everything? So. If you're Alabama, and I was, again, half joking when I said this, but, I don't know how much this SEC tournament does for you. I'm not saying you just completely, bow out and don't play or anything like that, but, this is, the Duke thing is going to be part of this process, whether we want it to be or not, and we've talked about it before. I'm telling, in the NCAA tournament, I think we're going to see a situation where a team has to forfeit, and there is a team that simply moves to the next round not having to play a game. I think that's going to be something that happens. And I hope it's not. But again, as we've seen with this Duke thing, you're seeing it, you've seen it with other conference tournaments. Who was it? Northern Iowa was the other one in the Missouri Valley. Unfortunately, I think this is going to be a situation that we're going to be talking about throughout the tournament. So, if you're Alabama, again, I don't think it's the worst thing if for some reason you were to get put out early. Of course, you don't want to lose probably, tomorrow on Friday, but if for some reason you lost in the semifinals, something like that, I don't think their seeding changes at all. And honestly, I think even if they were to lose to Kentucky or Mississippi State or someone like that, preferably Kentucky, I would think, I still think they're going to wind up as a 2 seed. I don't think they're dropping to the 3 because I don't know how much value the committee's going to look at and say, okay, one game for a team that went 16-2 in the regular season in the league, and I don't know how far you can drop them just for losing one conference tournament game. So that's something, too, that I think is worth keeping an eye on.
Duke was about to maybe get in the conversation for an at-large bid, although I'm looking a couple of quad 3 losses, 4-4 in quad 2, 2-5 in quad 1, although a nice win against Virginia. Some other wins against Clemson, Georgia Tech, Syracuse, Louisville, teams that have got a shot at the NCAA tournament. Clemson and Tech are there for sure. I think Syracuse and Louisville we can debate. Syracuse is probably there now. But the impact of that for the SEC is Ole Miss is on the bad end of the bubble trying to work its way up. And I guess maybe that's one more competitor that won't be a factor. Now, Duke's got a net of 51 and an average in the computer rankings that the NCAA uses of a 46. Ole Miss, by comparison, the computers, the non-net ones have got Ole Miss at 56 and 54 in the net. I thought Ole Miss had a better resume anyway, but I guess I think we both think Ole Miss is going to have a tough road to hoe to get there. Beating South Carolina today won't do anything to help. Now, beat LSU, and I think that could move the Rebels up several spots. But it's going to be interesting to see. I think if you're an SEC fan, if you're an Ole Miss fan in particular, you're watching the ACC and the Mountain West because there's just a cluster of teams in those two leagues that are right on that, 11, 12, 13, I guess more 11 and 12, because 13 is usually dipping into the one bid leagues. But anyway, my point I'm trying to make is those are the tournaments you want to watch because I think those are the teams that are right on the bubble ahead of Ole Miss, where Ole Miss is trying to get in contention. And I don't know, the ACC had some interesting results yesterday, but we talked pre-podcast. I don't know how much it changed. I mean, it hurt Louisville a little bit. I don't know if it moved Louisville out, but it's going to be very interesting keeping an eye on those two tournaments if you're Ole Miss, because you've got to get some positive results there if you're the Rebels, if you want to sneak into this thing.
Yeah, nothing matters unless they beat South Carolina. Like, this discussion means nothing just because they have to win the game against South Carolina. And I think for the most part, as you said, I think they have to beat LSU. I could be wrong. I'm not a, bracketologist, but I just, the more I look at sort of the resume and I compare it to some of the others, I wonder if, the selection committee seeing some of the same things maybe we see in terms of what Ole Miss's resume is compared to some of the others. And look, again, you're potentially saying this knowing that everyone else's results are going to matter too. So even if they beat LSU, is it still a lock that they get in? I don't know, because it's going to depend on what some of those other teams do. Like you said, maybe some of the Mountain West teams make a run or something like that. I'm not sure, but I do think they have to win too. And, I've seen some scenarios where maybe winning one puts them in, but I feel like if you want to be confident, and again, I think you would be able to be a little bit confident at that point that if you win two and get to the semifinals, I think you're in. But, the South Carolina win, as you said, there's no upside to it because it just doesn't do anything. It's really all about winning this game to get to the next game because that's the one that's going to probably give you a good chance to punch your ticket, even if, I think that still puts you probably towards that last four in type of mark, even if you, were to play and lose in the semifinals after that.
Well, this is how ugly it gets right on that fringe of the bubble, and this is the end fringe right now. I've just kind of ranked these teams by my opinion of resume. I've got North Carolina 41, UCLA 42. North Carolina 2-8 against Quad 1, UCLA 2-6. Carolina 7-0 against Quad 2, UCLA 3-2, and they did pretty well against the rest. Although Carolina's got a Quad 3 loss. But you go and look, and Carolina's wins are mostly against borderline NCAA tournament teams like Syracuse and Duke, although, again, I think Syracuse has moved more towards the end category. But that's why I think if Ole Miss gets a couple wins, you beat an LSU and you beat an Arkansas or somebody like that, I think Ole Miss got a great shot to get into that point because, and again, it's going to depend on what those other teams do, but these teams haven't exactly piled up quality wins, and that's why these things change the picture so much at some point, because every time you get one of those, you're competing against a group that doesn't have a lot of big wins, and that's why this is important.
Yeah, and I mean, LSU, as we said, I think it was so important for LSU to get that win at Missouri, which gave them a chance to be the 3 seed, and that obviously strengthens LSU's resume to the point to where if you're Ole Miss, okay, now we get a chance to play a team like that puts us in a position to where we feel pretty good if we're able to get a win there. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting because, like we said, I think you and we talked, like, we feel pretty confident that Ole Miss should beat South Carolina. I think that they're going to have the motivation. I don't think it's ever easy to play a Frank Martin team, even though it's looked easier from a scoring standpoint as of late. But I still think that's one to where I would be surprised if Ole Miss doesn't kind of come out with that sort of motivation, that drive to be able to really, win a game like that and potentially winning it convincingly based on recent games for South Carolina. And then from there, you carry some of that momentum into the game against LSU. And so I'm curious, man, because I would love to see them get in. I'd love to see them get that opportunity. But, it's going to be interesting to see if they can put those wins together.
Yeah, I think LSU, Florida both in, barring something just absolutely insane. People coming in the Big 12 and the SEC taking bids there. And Florida lost. Say Florida loses to Vandy today. That's what, a Quad 2 loss on a neutral court?
I think that would be right.
Then Florida's 3-4 in Quad 2 under that scenario. Maybe if everybody else wins, it gets interesting. But I think that's maybe 1 in 100, 2 in 100 type scenario, if even that. I mean, I just think I think Ole Miss is the only team that's really playing for a lot. I mean, you might get see Tennessee, one of these teams, move up a seed line. And by the way, I think the Vols may be a 5. The more I look at it, now if they lose to Florida or Vandy, then maybe that changes. But I just don't see this tournament. You made the point. You might just want to go home and get ready for the big dance. I just don't see this event, other than Ole Miss, if it can sneak a couple wins, changing a whole lot for anybody in this league.
Yeah, I agree. I think, as we talked about, I don't think Alabama's, I think they're set. Arkansas could conceivably move up one seed line from a 3 to a 2 if they won the thing, or even, I think, possibly if they got to the championship and played in Alabama, someone like that. I think Arkansas would move up. But really everything else, like you said, I feel like is that there's not going to be a lot. And the only other thing I would mention is what I mentioned before. I think if you're a team like Florida or LSU, I think just trying to get out of that 8-9 game is preferable, because I just don't think you want to be there this year based on who you would play in the next round. So maybe there is, some upside in that regard, but still at the same time, I think there is going to be actually a pretty nice difference, considerable difference between being a 7 and 8 seed this year. So maybe that is something that I'm kind of undervaluing a bit. But other than that, this Duke thing, I'm telling you, like, it's just we knew in the back of our mind that this was going to be a possibility with these tournaments, and we had already seen it, as I said, with Northern Iowa in the Missouri Valley, and I want to say that it's happened at other mid-major conferences too. But this is one that just kind of, it puts it in the back of your mind. You're like, man, like, this is actually a realistic possibility, that this stuff could happen, and your team could be put in a situation. And I think the more you look at it, as you said, there's not a lot to gain seed wise other than Ole Miss. But man, there's not a lot to gain, period. If you're a team that's heading to the NCAA tournament, I guess. So
yeah, I've got Arkansas as the top 3 seed right now. Houston right in front of Arkansas. Houston just doesn't have a lot of quality wins. It blew out a lot of bad and mediocre teams, and that's the strength of its resume, is the computer's seeing that. Arkansas has actually gotten a bump in the computer polls the last couple of days. I guess the teams the Razorbacks played have done pretty well. But I see Arkansas, if Arkansas maybe can win this thing, and even if Houston wins the American, maybe at that point Arkansas's resume is stronger. But that, and I've got 3 Big 12 teams, Kansas, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, right behind the Razorbacks too. So I think that's something you're watching if you're an Arkansas fan, if I've interpreted this correctly, is how those leagues go. But anyway, Barry, I want to kick it to you. Any thoughts on the SEC tournament or the state of the league as we get towards NCAA tournament play?
Well, obviously it's an exciting time. Teams trying to jockey for positions, and I'm kind of interested in the Mississippi State Kentucky game today. Just 2 teams that obviously need wins, but 2 teams that played 4 games in the regular season against Alabama, and 3 of them were fairly competitive. 2 of them on Alabama's home floor, and the one at Rupp was ugly. Kentucky is interesting to me. They're that team that they have history in this league, in this tournament. It's a big deal to them. In the last 27 years, Kentucky's won this tournament 16 times, and everybody else has won it 11 times. And in a 10-year period from 1986 to 95, Kentucky and Alabama won it every year. So Kentucky, this is their time. And I'm not saying they're going to beat Mississippi State, and they're going to beat Alabama, and they're going to beat Tennessee, and they're going to beat Arkansas. But if there's a team in there to be scared about, maybe not be scared, but just to watch, this team's got a chance, because history is absolutely on their side in this tournament. This is, they may call it Catsville or Catlanta or whatever they do wherever they're playing, but Kentucky would be somebody that I'd be a little concerned about.
Barry, let's transition to baseball. It's about to get interesting. The league's got some interesting series this week, and I'm particularly interested to see how Vanderbilt does traveling to Oklahoma State. Let's start there. Vanderbilt's going to be without Dom Keegan and Luke Murphy. Keegan is their first baseman, who is way at the top of the charts across the country in on base and slugging. I don't know where the battle stands between he and Wes Clark right now, but they might be the country's top 2 hitters at this point, statistically speaking. Luke Murphy, a kid who's got 2 saves. He and Ethan Smith are splitting closing duties. Now, Vanderbilt's exceptionally deep, and it's got some pretty good plug-ins for those two guys, but that's not something you want if you're Vanderbilt heading to Stillwater, is to be without those two kids. So that'll be interesting to see how that series goes and if those absences impact anything.
Yeah, it certainly will. Huge series. Former Vanderbilt assistant, now the head coach at Oklahoma State, and taking on the Commodores and bringing them into a new stadium. It's just a couple of games old. O'Brate Stadium. They built a really nice ballpark, and I think this is a really good matchup this weekend. You look at Oklahoma State. They can pitch. Hey, surprise, surprise. Who can't pitch? I mean, we were kind of talking about that before we started the podcast, but what teams can't pitch? That's what I'm interested to see. They're 10-0-1. They got a 1.91 ERA. They had 140 strikeouts at 99 innings, and they're holding opponents to a 227 batting average as a staff. And they have several guys that have yet to give up an earned run. Here's 10 guys that's pitched at least 2 innings for them, and their ERA is 1.5 or less. Offensively, they hit only 242, but they've hit 16 home runs in 11 games. Jake Thompson has 364 average, and then Christian Encarnacion Strand already has 5 homers and 13 RBI in 11 games, but he's hitting only 289, and he does have 9 strikeouts and 45 at bats. Kind of Wes Clark type numbers on the home runs and RBI. So certainly an interesting series to see Vanderbilt go on the road, see what that pitching staff can do against an Oklahoma State team that's traditionally a power conference team, ranked 17th in the latest Warren Nolan poll, and 10-0-1 in the year. Certainly an interesting series to keep an eye on this weekend from an SEC standpoint.
Well, the second most interesting, probably South Carolina and Texas. I think we hit that one on Tuesday a little bit. We talked about Texas has got a big arm in Ty Madden, who's a potential top 10 overall pick this year. Carolina has just crushed the ball. That's got to be, I think, second on the list in terms of series. I don't know if you've got anything to add on that we didn't cover the other day, but that one's going to be one to keep an eye on too.
Well, shots have already been fired in this series. I don't know if you saw Twitter the last couple of days, but there's a Twitter account, Occupy Left Field, which is UFCU Dish Falk Field in Austin. And they've already fired the first shot of the series. They showed the dog pile in Omaha from 2005, and they go, awaiting the Gamecocks yet again. And Texas has beaten South Carolina in the national championship game in Omaha twice, 1975 and 2002. Of course, none of these kids were playing, or some of them not even alive at that point in time. But, Texas knows what a big series this is, and they're going to run a big arm out there Friday night. And Ty Madden, 135 ERA, 30 strikeouts in 20 innings. Now, they're going to be a good test for South Carolina. Is the highest rated SEC team in the Warren Nolan RPI, and 11-0. They've won 15 straight games dating back to last season. So it'll be an interesting series, certainly in Austin. All 3 of those games are going to be on the Longhorn Network, and very interested to catch some of those. And if you're looking at just Vandy, South Carolina, and you're looking at them going into the weekend, the SEC's 10-4 against the Big 12 this year, including that 8-1 run at Globe Life Park to start the season. And Texas lost all 3 games out there to Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Arkansas. So they will be trying to get a little revenge against the SEC this weekend as well.
And of course, it wouldn't be an out-of-conference weekend series without Georgia State, right? They go to Kentucky this weekend. Are they trying to slip in the back door and get an SEC membership here?
Well, it'd certainly help them. I don't know how they'd fare against some of the bigger teams, but yeah, they played Vanderbilt, Tennessee, and now Kentucky. They've made that run up into the northern part of the SEC, and it's good for them. They've scheduled well. They feel like they have a good team, and they're trying to play really good teams before they get into conference play, and see where they go. Once they get into league play, next week. But they've certainly played a challenging schedule to this point in the 2021 season.
Barry, anything else that stands out to you on the weekends? I know we'll want to get to Mississippi State in a minute because the pitching numbers the Bulldogs are putting up are just crazy. I mean, Jacksonville, Florida, anytime you get a weekend opponent or even a midweek opponent in that state, there's a lot of competitive baseball teams down there. Arkansas hosting Louisiana Tech. Conference USA is a decent baseball league. What else stands out to you in terms of series to watch this weekend? Stetson, Alabama, I think would be 1-2 probably.
Yeah, I think that's on the list. Stetson's kind of scuffled a little bit, blew a 5-run lead in Gainesville last night, lost 11-5, but have played. They were 10-0, I think, and now I believe they're 10-4 coming to Tuscaloosa. They've got some arms, and I think their deal was could they hit. So we'll find out how they do when they get on the road and play Alabama this weekend. I think the question for Alabama is still the availability of Connor Prelip, and I mean it is tight-lipped around here. I've talked to several people, and I don't get any kind of inclination if he's going to pitch this weekend or not. They'll announce their pitching rotations this afternoon at some point, and I don't know if he's available this weekend or not. I know it's a medical condition, so I think they need to get him back, and I think they'd like to have him, available before they go to Arkansas. But that would be something that would, be of interest if he can get back in the rotation for them this weekend. I think Arkansas going to Louisiana Tech could be an interesting series on the road. In fact, Louisiana Tech's next 5 home games are against Arkansas and Ole Miss. So good scheduling there by the Bulldogs and Lane Burroughs to get 2 really high-quality SEC Western Division teams coming into to your ballpark, which is a new place. And because of the hurricane a couple of years ago and some damage and stuff, they end up having to rebuild their stadium. And another interesting thing that's developed this weekend is LSU was supposed to play Baylor, and Baylor has opted to find another series and play at home. And so Texas San Antonio will be pinch hitting for the Baylor Bears in Baton Rouge this weekend. That just happened yesterday. So the schedule will stay the same as it is, and the Saturday game will remain on the SEC network. But LSU trading Baylor for Texas San Antonio this weekend because Baylor opting to stay at home and reschedule and play. So I don't know if that had some COVID issues or they didn't want to try to travel or what all went into that. But Paul Maneri and the Tigers able to get Texas San Antonio into town for the weekend and not have an open spot.
Barry, there are 5 SEC teams at the top of the rankings this week. Arkansas, consensus number 1. I think Vanderbilt, most people's number 2. You've got both the Mississippis in there, and you've got Florida in there too, which is preseason number 1. How do you rank those teams right now?
Wow, that's a great question, and I'd like to try to rank all the SEC teams. Maybe do a power rankings as we get into the deal. As we get into SEC play next week. I think right now, for me, I think Arkansas, Vandy, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Florida would be my 5, and South Carolina might even be tied with Florida. I know their record is better than Florida. I might even put South Carolina ahead of Florida. They are ranked in the top 5 in the collegiate baseball poll ahead of Florida. But that's the only poll that's out that they are ranked ahead of Florida. But those teams to me right now seem to be the best of the best. And I think just maybe slightly Arkansas, just slightly ahead of Vanderbilt. I know Vanderbilt's probably better on the mound, but Arkansas has found so many ways to win. They have won really close games. They have had walk-offs. They have had come-from-behind wins. They have won shootouts. And they have bludgeoned people. And I think if they can get their rotation set, they went to Peyton Pallett last week as their number 1 guy. I assume they'll stay that way this week. They have a very deep bullpen. I've not been real overwhelmed by their starting pitching, but I'm overwhelmed by their pitching depth. It just seems like everybody in the world can pitch in this league. I mean, it's really crazy. Patrick Wicklander has pitched really well for them. Jackson Wiggins has made 3 relief appearances and given up, no runs. Pallett is 1-0 with a 1.35 ERA. He's got 26 strikeouts in 13 innings. I mean, it's everybody can pitch. And I think just their depth of their bullpen, like Vanderbilt's bullpen is deep. Mississippi State's bullpen is deep. But I think Arkansas and Vanderbilt, in some order, might right now be the top two teams.
Well, speaking of arms and insane strikeout rates, let me introduce you to Mississippi State, right?
Yes, let me shake all their hands because this team is crazy, and I don't mean like insane. I mean their numbers are just absolutely staggering. They got 180 strikeouts in 117 innings. They have pitched 3 consecutive shutouts. That hasn't happened since 1976 at Mississippi State, and the record is 5 in a row back in 1909. And don't be shocked if they do that, if they get a couple more this weekend against an Eastern Michigan team. But their strikeout totals are just absolutely nuts. They struck out 17 last night in a 9-inning game against UL Lafayette, who's a really good hitting team. But the one guy in their stat sheet that just jumps out at me, that's just absolutely crazy. He's recorded 32 outs this year. Kid by the name of Landon Sims, 4-0, 1.10 record, 0.84 ERA. He's gotten 32 outs this year. He got 27 strikeouts. So that means 5 guys didn't strike out again. He struck out. I mean, that's I can't even fathom that. He had 5 last night. He's the only guy that's pitched twice during this 27-inning scoreless streak. They've used 14 different arms in this 27-inning scoreless streak, and he's the only guy that's pitched twice. And he struck out 8 in 3 innings. So, I mean, that I can see why they run him out there. But the Mississippi State pitching is just absolutely crazy. It's amazing how well they've pitched this year. And just looking at their numbers, I think what we said a while ago, there's at least 1 inning. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16 Mississippi State Bulldogs that have pitched at least 1 inning and have an ERA of less than 1.80.
That's Sid Finch kind of stuff.
I've never seen it. I can't even. I mean, we've seen a lot of good hitting in this league and a lot of offense. I don't ever remember the strikeouts and the pitching being this good in this league. I think maybe a 5-round draft last year has had something to do with that. And I like I told you before we started this, I think it's only going to get better because the draft is cutting down. What's it going to be, 20 rounds this year? I think you're going to see good players. You're going to see players at Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and Alabama that you would never thought you'd see go there. And then you're going to see people at the other teams, these mid-majors and the junior colleges and the NAIAs and all that. You're going to see guys at these levels that you've never thought you'd ever see play college baseball because they don't have the rounds in the draft anymore. And like we talked about, if you're a high school kid and they go, well, we're going to take you in the 15th round, you're like, nah, I'm going to go pitch for Tim Corbin. In 3 years, you take me in the first round and you'll give me $5 million. And you're going to see a lot of guys doing that. And I think you're just going to see these numbers keep going up as the years go along.
Well, I feel like baseball has really soared in popularity in the Southeast, but I feel like it's starting to get more on the national radar too. And I'll give you just an anecdotal example. I'm searching my phone last night for box scores or for NCAA tournament scores, right, on the ESPN app. All of a sudden, look up on their score thing, they put college baseball on there. And not just the top 25, but like all the games. So I think that tells you something when a place like ESPN is starting to run a scoreboard for all of college baseball that's following it, up to the minute or so. You figure ESPN's got some data to back that up. That to me was really interesting when all of a sudden I'm searching and they haven't had college baseball on there until the postseason in the last few years. Now all of a sudden you can check your phone and ESPN's got a scoreboard of what's going on all across the country. And to me, that was kind of a pleasant little surprise.
Well, I think they realize how popular it is. And I think, a lot of times they don't get into college baseball till the tournaments and the regionals and super regionals. And they're trying to cram stories in that, things that, people like us know and people that cover these teams, we already know that. And there's some fans out there that don't know the stories and don't know the ins and outs of some of the teams because they don't follow them. But I think they realize they've got something that's really cool. I mean, here we are, right smack dab in the middle of March Madness. We couldn't be right in the more middle of it than we are with all these tournaments going on and all of these bracket busters. And we're talking who's getting in and who's getting out in college basketball. And then here we got 5 SEC baseball games on TV this week on over-the-air TV. I mean, we got Auburn on Saturday against Little Rock. We got LSU on Saturday night against UTSA. And South Carolina and Texas is on all 3 games this weekend on the Longhorn Network. So you got, I mean, that's not really, that's kind of unprecedented for me in SEC tournament week. And we got 5 baseball games on TV this weekend. And I think there's 4 or 5 softball games on TV this weekend. And so I think the popularity of the sport has really taken off, not just in this league, but everywhere else as well. And I think it's very interesting.
It's almost as if it's a good time to start a podcast and a website on these things, right? But in any case, let's talk A&M a minute, because the Aggies were kind of that mystery team we talked about and struggled. They'd lose 2 or 3 to Xavier to start the season, but A&M really starting to pitch it a bit and hitting a little bit better too. Of course, Aggies always pitch, but they've got, I think, a 7-game winning streak now, and it seems like they're maybe getting things turned around a bit in College Station.
Yeah, they've won 7 in a row. They've won 10 out of 11 after a 1-3 start this year, playing really, really well. They've outscored their opponents 55-8 during their 7-game winning streak. Had a win last night. They beat Prairie View A&M 22-2 in 7 innings, and they beat Prairie View last year 30-2 at home. So that most runs they had since that game last year. But playing really well on offense and defense. Logan Britt last night, a right fielder, went 3 for 4, scored 3 runs, had a home run, hit a 2-run homer in the 8th inning. Will Frizzell's been swinging the bat really well, and their catcher duo last night of Taylor Smith and Kimball Schuessler drove in 5 runs, with Smith hitting a solo homer in the 3rd inning. The Aggies are playing really well right now. Their only loss is to Auburn in their last 11 games, and it was a 1-0 game going to the 7th inning.
Barry, any more thoughts on baseball or even hoops before we end the podcast here in a few?
Just for baseball, trying to see how these teams shake out one last weekend. It's kind of like their final audition. And then we'll really get into the meat and potatoes next week when the teams start playing each other, in conference games. Just, can Arkansas and South Carolina remain undefeated? I think South Carolina's got a tougher task than Arkansas does. And, how will Vanderbilt, respond on the road this weekend without 2 of their stars? And just, can some of the other teams, be more consistent and play at a higher level than some of them have, and just see where everything shakes out as we get into the SEC next week. And, obviously, I'm a baseball guy first, but, nothing better than, this weekend for March Madness. I'm excited about the selection show on Sunday, find out where, our SEC teams are going. And I think it'll be a unique setup this year that all the games are in Indiana or in Indianapolis area. And I think that'll shake out and be really cool. Can somebody in Nashville make that 3-day run to get to the finals and win it, a la an Auburn in 85 or a Arkansas in 2000 or Mississippi State, Georgia, or even Auburn 2 years ago when they won 4 games and ran through the tournament and had ran roughshod through the NCAA field all the way to the Final Fours. There, is Ole Miss that team? Blake, can they do that with Schuler, the way he scores? Can they be that team? And so that's kind of things that's kind of interesting to me as we head into this weekend.
Blake, I'm going to throw it to you to close this out and, of course, promote what we've got coming up here at the 14 on the podcast, on the website. Boy, it's like playing an air traffic controller right now. We got so many things to cover and talk about. It's almost hard to keep up with them all.
Yes, and as you guys have been talking baseball, I've been trying to keep up with everything over at the website and trying to make sure we have everything covered and have everything up that we need. And on Twitter at 14 Southeastern, we've got some polls up to get you excited for the games of the day. And as Barry said, I think it's going to be a fun tournament just because, as we've said so many times, you do have these teams that are inevitably probably going to make a run. We don't know which team that's going to be, but that's part of the excitement is to see how that unfolds. So, yeah, check out everything over at southeastern14.com. Of course, our podcast, we got, the 5-star ratings reviews. We have just been so pleased by what we've gotten from those. We really appreciate everyone for leaving the great feedback on that. And again, if you're maybe just catching this podcast and you haven't had a chance to listen to our earlier podcast this week, would highly recommend doing that, because we talked to Ole Miss coach Kermit Davis on Monday. We talked to Pat Bradley yesterday on Wednesday's episode of the podcast, and we made our predictions for every single game in the tournament, which, as Chris said earlier, we are 0-1, but hopefully we will not wind up being 0-12 or whatever it is. So check everything out. Any podcast app you use, you can find us there.
Blake, going to be a lot of fun the next few days. Can't wait to do this pod tomorrow when we got 4 more SEC tournament games in the books. We'll be on the brink of baseball. Like I said, it's the best time of the year for me, and we're going to have you covered at the 14. If it's interesting regarding the SEC in baseball and basketball, I think we will cover it better than anybody else. So anyway, thank you for listening to this episode of the 14. We'll be back on Friday again. Check out our website at Southeastern 14. We'll have more content between now and then. Thank you for listening. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you again on Friday.